Good evening. I'm Dennis Fernandez, the Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. We're here at the January 3rd, 2022 Architecture Review Commission public hearing. Commissioners, this evening we do lack a chair and a vice chair. So in order to commence the meeting, we will need to elect a chair for the evening. Do I have any nominations for chair for the evening?
I nominate Mr. Sutton for chair.
We have a nomination for Commissioner Sutton. Any others? And is Commissioner Sutton willing to serve in that capacity this evening?
I am, sir.
Great. So if we could just have a motion affirming Mr. Sutton as the chair for this evening's meeting. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And with that, we can begin the meeting, Mr. Sutton.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Ladies and gentlemen, I call the opening of the Architectural Review Commission public hearing for this date, January 3rd, 2022. It is Monday. It is our first meeting of the year. And if I might take it just a brief moment, I would like to wish you all an excellent new year, please. Thank you for joining us. My name is Stephen Sutton. I'm a registered architect, and I am normally holding the architectural historian chair for this commission, but as you have heard, my compatriots have elected me as your acting chair for the evening. If you are here to present a project, you will have a limited time to make your presentation. So we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. Commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: site plan, elevations, architectural details, and wall sections. Staff will then present their staff report. We will then ask for public comment. Following your presentation, the commissioners will be asking questions in the same order as the presentation. Following, let's see. We will then ask for public comment. Please state and spell your name clearly. If you are here to speak for or against a project, your time will be limited to 3 minutes. So take some time now to summarize your comments, because 3 minutes goes by very quickly. Following public comment, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The hearing will then be closed. Only comments which will be allowed after the public hearing is closed will be in response to any questions by the commissioners. The commissioners will then discuss the case and make their decision based on the city ordinance, chapter 27 of the city's zoning code, the design guidelines, the Secretary of Interior standards, historic preservation and development review comments, and testimony given here at this public hearing. The ARC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owners, agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones. I would like to introduce my fellow commissioners, starting on my left.
Shauna Boyd, interior designer.
Dan Myers, architect.
Brent Taylor, building contractor.
And I would like to introduce our staff who are with us today. We have with us Dennis Fernandez, we have Ron Vila, Elaine Lund, Beverly Juzek, and our city attorney, Camaria Pettis Mackel. I believe we're ready to proceed.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Kamaria Pettis Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. Commissioners, if we could have, we're going now to the items regarding the minutes of December 6th and December 8th.
I move to approve the minutes from Monday, December 6th and Wednesday, December 8th.
I second the motion.
All those in favor, say aye and raise your hand accordingly.
Aye.
Against, none. Minutes are accepted as presented.
Good evening, Commissioners. Once again, Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. Welcome to this evening's hearing, and Happy New Year to all. Just briefly, wanted to announce that we will be having our second part of the January cycle public hearings on January the 5th, this coming Wednesday. We do have a quorum confirmed for that hearing, so we'll be reviewing the remainder of the cases at that time. Also, as you may have gathered by now, we are wearing masks again in response to the recent COVID increase in numbers. So just keep that in mind as far as when you're speaking into the microphones, you may have to enunciate a little louder for the microphones to pick you up. We will move on now to conflicts of interest and ex parte communication, and our legal advisor will lead that discussion.
Good evening again, Commissioners. Kamaria Pettis Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. Will the Commissioners please state whether or not they have any conflicts of interest regarding any of the items that are listed on the agenda?
None.
I have none.
Thank you. Will the Commissioners also please state whether or not they've had any ex parte communications regarding any of the items that are on the agenda?
No.
I have none.
Thank you so much.
One last course of business, I do have the administrative approvals from December to add into the record. We will make that addition to the record. And moving into continuations, Ron will lead that discussion.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Under continuations, we have ARC 21-488. This is for the address of 1702 West Chaton. This request came in late this afternoon by the agent to continue to the February 9th, 2022 public hearing at 5:30 p.m. We do have a representative from that case if there's any questions. If not, we need a motion to continue to February 9th, 2022 at 5 p.m.
5:30.
I move to grant a continuance in case ARC 21-488 for the property located at 1702 West Chaton Avenue to the February 9th, 2022 case at 5:30 p.m.
I second the motion.
All those in favor, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Against, none. Continuation is approved.
Thank you for that motion. And moving to the swear-in, everybody that wishes to testify, please stand up and raise your right hand, including staff. Ms. Beverly Juzek will swear us in.
I solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be providing this evening is the truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. We're ready for the first case.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation staff. The first item on the agenda to be reviewed this evening is case ARC 21-440/REZ 21-96. This is a rezoning recommendation, and the charge that you have is with regard to applications for rezoning to review and recommend reasonable land use changes to the extent necessary to preserve the historical integrity and appearance of the historic district. So this property is located in the Tampa Heights Historic District, and I'll move to the photo presentation here. It is in the southern part of the historic district. You can see it on this map highlighted in green. This is the 1920s Sanborn map of the area. Again, showing the subject property highlighted in green. You can see at that time that there were single-family residences on the property, including one building that appears to have been 2 separate units. And this, again, is the subject property in green, currently 3 parcels here on Oak Avenue and between Central Avenue and Jefferson Street. This is looking north. This is a view looking north into the subject site. You can see that it is currently vacant. And the site extends a little further to the east here, so you can see the rest of it there. This is on the north side of Oak Avenue. This is the house just to the east at the corner of Oak and Central. And then looking to the west, this is the non-historic building at the corner of Oak and Jefferson. This is the rear of that property at Oak and Jefferson. You can see the parking lot that is there for that particular commercial building. Looking across the street to the south, this is a historic building, a contributing property within the district. Directly south of the site is a vacant lot, currently vacant. And the remainder of that property there that is also vacant. This is the view looking east on Oak. You can see the interstate in the distance. And then looking west into the historic district. This is a view from behind the subject site in the alley. Here we are looking east towards Central. And here we are looking west towards Jefferson. So the subject site is to your left in this picture. That concludes the photo presentation. At this time, I'd like to request that the applicant come forward and make their presentation.
Good evening, board members. My name is David Mechanic. Representing the applicant this evening. My office is at 305 South Boulevard, Tampa, Florida. With me this evening is Justin Guy with the developer Onyx at East, Steven Sposato, who is a planner and will present in a few minutes the site plan and some of the considerations regarding the site plan. And then we have architect Diego Duran from Sharp Design, and he will discuss the architectural aspects of the project. I would just like to say at the outset that we agree with the conditions that are recommended by the staff, and we will be discussing those and responding to those conditions throughout our presentation. I'd like to, I'm going the wrong direction there. This is the site plan, and again, Stephen will speak to this in more detail, but I just wanted, there's sort of a legal issue that is presented with the 4 parking spaces that are in the the northwest quarter of the site. This property is part of a much larger PD that the city applied for. The city was the owner of this property back in 1999. It was actually zoned for an office park. And the subject parcel is the last remaining undeveloped parcels in that PD zoning. And the reason we have those 4 parking spaces is to provide sufficient parking for the office property immediately to the west. And what the original PD plan contemplated that some of that office parking would occur on my client's property. So we had to accommodate that as a requirement of the zoning staff as we proceeded with this application. So while it's quite unusual to have something like that, it was a requirement of the staff. So at this time, I would ask Steven Sposato to come forward and present the the site plan and the considerations regarding the staff report.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Spizzato. I'm a planner with Level Up Consulting, and we're here with the applicant, and we are also the engineer and landscape architect. Won't go into much more detail in terms of the location and the context, just that it is designated Res 83, the future land use designation, and as Dave mentioned, it has an existing PD zoning. In terms of layout, I'm going to go to the more detailed plan. It includes 5 lots. It's pretty straightforward in terms of design. 5 detached homes are proposed with garages facing the alley to the north. It's shared with with the parcels that are opposite, who also access the alley for vehicular access. The minimum front setback is 10 feet. The front setback will vary by at least 2 feet, and that is consistent with the pattern that's existing. And the goal there is to provide interest and character, and Diego Duran will talk about that more in his presentation. The side setbacks minimum side setbacks are 5 feet. And I think Dave already went through the condition or the parking that is on lot 1 there in the northwest corner. Again, it's straightforward. I'm happy to answer any questions, but at this point I'll hand it over to Diego Duran, who's the project architect. Thank you.
Dennis, we should talk about the way. Okay. If you would.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to briefly also go over the 2 waivers that are included in our application. One is regarding trees. We're proposing to plant as many trees as possible, but also reserve option to make payment into the trust fund as a fallback position. So that's the initial waiver. The condition and location of the trees, they're marginal, and more than 50% will be removed. And the second one has to do with a buffer associated with the 4 parking spaces. We're asking for a reduction from 8 to 5 feet, and I'm not sure if I can point to you, but basically adjacent where you see the 4 spaces, we're asking for a reduction of the VUA buffer in that area. Again, to provide for efficiency to locate those parkings for the adjacent use. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Diego Duran. I am architect with Sharp Design Studio. And so let me pick up where we left off. So for this project, we designed the homes, single-family homes, with an architectural style going towards Craftsman. So what we have is a variation of a Craftsman style with the low roof pitches, simulating the neighborhood, the existing fabric of the community. You can see on the renderings, we have picked up, as far as architectural detailing, the gables, some of the corbels or brackets that we see throughout in different styles. We also utilize the setback from neighboring properties to create, the typical average that we try to go for. We are matching the setback to the structure on the west side of the property, which would be our 12-foot setback. From there on, the next house does have an additional couple feet on the setback. We did this to create some variation given the proximity of the homes and to create some interest in the dynamics of the fabric of the structures, because they are obviously all, craftsmen, and we don't want them all to look exactly the same. They are not the same plan. They do have different features. As we were designing per the guidelines, we followed the conditions, including raising the entry to, in this case, we have 18 inches above grade, resembling the raised entry porch, the columns. Per the last civic meeting we had, there was a recommendation to enlarge the porches at the front of the buildings. There's a requirement to maintain the porches at a minimum of 60% of the width. We actually went all the way 100%, so it goes a porch from side to side. The depth of the porch is about 8 feet for the majority of the porch at the entry location. We have incorporated the typical materials and finishes that you would see historically, as would be the siding, and then some accents like shakes and or board and batten, as well as I've mentioned before, the typical features, which would be brackets and gables. We did maintain the hips at the back of the property, as well as the detached garages, which is seen throughout the majority of the neighboring properties. So these are some of the images. As you can see here, you can notice the variation on the setback to not be 100% in line, creating a little bit of that dynamic movement on the facades. This is an image just indicating the existing hip roof examples around the area, where the majority of them are hips. And again, we're just trying to emphasize the fact that we kept the detached garage all hips, and it is something that you do see around. Some of the example regarding the raised elevation as required in the guidelines. We are, again, at 18 inches above grade for the finished floor of the entrance. Some of the examples of the existing siding, can't quite see, but that 3202 North Jefferson does have board and batten throughout, but for the most part it is shake siding, board and batten, as we're using on our materials. As far as the roof, we do have a metal roof, as well as shingles. The metal is only used as an accent on some of these entrances, the shed roofs and decorative items. And here we have some of the typical elevations for the product. We are carrying through all four sides, the siding as being the main element of the Craftsman elevation. Some of the other materials and textures, as mentioned before, are used as accent elements of the facade as opposed to a main building element. That goes back to the site plan, which indicates that small variation on the setbacks. And again, we're purely doing this so that there's some movement on the facade, given the elevations are so close in appearance as far as facade goes. But we are definitely exceeding the requirement for the minimum setback, as well as respecting the boundary setbacks of the properties east and west of our project. And just to mention, across the street there will be a development that does have a 5-foot setback for a 3-story building. And as far as colors, these are not final colors, but I did want to go back to it just so you guys can see. Obviously on the rendering you can kind of see some of the schemes we're hoping to do, again going with the guidelines, trying to stay on the architectural preferred colors for the area historically, which would be something like that. to conclude, just go back to the final rendering, and that's all we have for now. Good.
This is David Mechanic again. For the record, that concludes our presentation, but we'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioners, Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation staff. Staff finds that this application is consistent with the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances in accordance with Chapter 27-113A2J. That is the part of the code that directs this commission to review and recommend reasonable land use changes to the extent necessary to preserve the historical integrity and appearance of the historic district. Please keep in mind that you will see the certificate of appropriateness application. If this PD is approved, is recommended for approval and is approved by City Council, you will see the certificate of appropriateness application again in front of you for the details on the specific construction. The design criteria for new construction and additions in Tampa Heights discusses specific items that you are to review with new construction. Most of the ones that pertain to site planning and to the general scale and massing of the buildings, those relate to what is required for the PD approval. The scale, height and width, the massing and building form, setback, orientation and site coverage, and alignment, rhythm, and spacing are those particular elements. So in making your deliberation this evening, I just would like to request that you stick to those particular design criteria, and remember that there will be more detail for you to consider perhaps at a later date. Thank you.
Hearing none, seeing none.
Can you just announce that one more time, Mr. Chair, if there are any public comment?
Thank you very much. Is there any public comment?
Thank you.
Hearing none and seeing none, we will continue. Commissioners, any questions of the applicant at this point in time?
Do you have references for the elevation from grade for the two houses that are flanking either side of your property?
Against Diego Duran. We would prefer to stay with the 18 inches above grade for all of the four elevations or the four plans. One of the reasons, obviously, is that we think 18 inches is appropriate based off of the neighboring properties. And, going any higher or lower may just create conflicts based off of the proximity of one residence to the other.
Do you know the elevations from grade of the two properties on either side? So the commercial on the west, I believe, and the residential on the east?
I don't have that right here with me.
Okay. Do you know the overall heights of those two properties?
The overall heights of the properties is anywhere between 25 on the left to about 30 and change foot. I apologize, I don't have the exact numbers here with me. We are definitely height-wise in line with the massing of the buildings. Again, part of the reasoning of working with the setback, with the front setback, was to make sure that everything fell proportionally, massing-wise, adequate with the surrounding buildings.
And the setback on the west property appears from your rendering to be similar to your
Mhm.
properties. Do you know the setback of the property on the east?
I don't know the setback from property on the east. We know the west property setback is the 12-foot, which is what we're matching at the front, and that is our minimum throughout the project. The east side, I'm not sure what that one is.
This question is for you guys or staff. Is there an aerial of this area where we can see what it looks like as of today?
Commissioner Elaine Lund, if you give me just a moment, I can pull that back up for you. Okay, that should be available on your
Okay.
screens.
I got it.
Okay.
Are you able to zoom into that at all?
So my next question is do you know, as far as the average lot coverage that you're proposing with these residences and garages compared to the size of the actual property, the lot line itself?
I don't have the exact numbers, but we are definitely falling within zoning regulations, so not exceeding the allowed purviews, impervious, and, FAR requirements.
What is the average square footage of the footprints of these homes?
1 second. I apologize for not having all this information. The main designer for the project has COVID, which is why I'm here today. So they are under 2,000 square feet as far as AC square footage.
And I have one more question regarding the elevations, kind of piggybacking her question. Has there been any thought to adjusting those elevations where the houses are not all the same?
So the houses are all different. I think what makes them look so similar to each other, well, number one is the fact that we ended up at request widening the porches so that it would be a full width porch. Obviously we have a very narrow lot, so once we put the whole, the width of the porch across the entire building, is going to have a very high resemblance. The window location, floor plan design is different for each of those. However, again, what we are trying to do to make them look a little bit different is, well, number one, with cladding, we're trying to incorporate some of those accent finishes like the shake would be, or the board and batten, as opposed to doing the whole thing with siding, as well as the detailing on the gables in any of the fascias. But overall, the plans are actually not the same, or the elevations are not the same. They just look like they are very close to each other. We can definitely look into creating more of a more drastic difference if it becomes an issue. But again, the truth is it's not the same elevations or plans.
You have a question?
I have a question for staff. Is this an appropriate time for that, Elaine? Thank you. I am assuming that in the PD, these smaller lots and the reduced distance in between the houses are within the zoning requirements. Is that not correct?
I'm sorry, make sure I understood your question. You're asking about the setbacks for the side yards?
Yeah, the side yard setbacks and the general, I mean, we've taken
Yeah,
3
the,
parcels and put 5 houses on them,
Okay.
and that's all okay, is that?
Well, that is, and with a PD site plan, the PD sets the setbacks, so there's no, they're not determined by any other particular zoning category.
And in the previous PD, was there, I guess it was an office park, so it really didn't, it had very different coverages and, FARs and setbacks and all the other stuff. Is that the way it works?
Yeah, that is correct. The prior PD covered a much larger area and sort of gave locations for potential new construction. So it was not as site-specific, really, as what you're looking at today.
Do you have a site plan that shows the relationship between the adjacent property that will use the 4 parking spots and your 4 parking spots?
So let me go all the way to the front real quick. Okay, so that is the closest site plan we have. It does not indicate, the building footprint for the adjacent property.
Just show one more. That's probably the best view. Because of the existing tree, it's hard to see, but it definitely conforms to the existing parking area that's for that office use. And so it just basically provides, when you come into the existing parking area, to your left, there'll be, that's where the four spaces, but doesn't substantially alter or change what is currently there.
So the tree doesn't provide a barrier, or
We will be removing that tree.
you're removing the tree from the adjacent parcel?
It's on the, it's called a share, I guess it's a shared tree. And so as part of the discussions and working with the adjacent property owners, and also working with staff, it was determined that it was acceptable to remove that trees, which facilitates us to be able to put those parking spaces there.
How many
Yeah, sorry.
trees will you be removing versus how many trees will you be planting back?
There is a detailed, we're removing more than 50%, which is why we have the waiver. There is a landscape plan on the second. It's the second sheet of our PD set. We don't have that in the presentation. I have it here, and I can maybe show you on the viewer. Can you see that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So that is the landscape plan, and where I'm pointing there, that's where the laurel oak will be removed, and then shows the plantings that are proposed are the darker outlined trees here along the alley, and then a row of trees along Oak Avenue as well. The grand silky oak tree along the southeast corner will be maintained.
So the numbered circles are trees that you'll be removing, 1 through 7?
Yeah, well, the dotted line here I'm pointing to, that will be retained.
Mm-hmm.
But the small circles with the numbers, those are the trees that will be removed, and it's detailed in the report. If you look over right in here, it goes through the numbers and their status. So this I'm sorry, this table right here. You can see that has the tree number and then the type of tree, and then the status, and whether or not it'll be removed or kept.
There are your area calculations as well. The area calculations.
Is that answer? Okay, thank you.
I'd like to go back over just a few little fine details on the proposed development, because that's what we are discussing here tonight, is a proposed rezoning. Originally, this was platted in the 20s and before as 3 residential lots. At some time in the past, the city took over part and parcel of these 3 lots and rezoned PD with a future intention of some commercial development, which never came to the fore. Tonight, you are asking for a change again of the zoning to PD to allow for various development as a residential use for 5 dwellings, essentially 5 lots. General question, are these fee simple lots?
Yes, they are.
Can you go to the microphone, please, and
Yes, they are fee simple lots.
Thank you very much. Any further questions, ladies and gentlemen? The applicant is allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal at this time.
David Mechanic for the record. We have no rebuttal because there was no public comment. I would like to clarify the tree that is being removed has been determined to be hazardous, and the city natural resources have said we should take it down. So it's not a tree that is worthy of preservation.
Thank you very much. At this point in time, I wish to close the public hearing on this case and open up for our discussion. Ladies and gentlemen.
I appreciate the 5 independent dwellings as opposed to a lot of the attached units that we're seeing come up in this area. I struggle to approve or recommend the rezoning without those references because we'll be locked into building height setbacks, particularly in the front, as well as just getting that little bit of detail of the surrounding area. The property to the east, we didn't get any reference on height from grade, overall building height or setback. We sort of used the 12-foot on the west as our only reference, which is only applicable to the 2 corner units on this property, but I appreciate the direction.
Is this something that you want to, perhaps if we were to move on forward with a motion, to make or leave open for future coordination?
excuse me, Mr.
When we approve a PD, the floor plan will be what it is today, once it's approved.
The site plan.
The site plan.
Yeah.
The site plan.
Yes.
Okay. However, you know, you have certain concern about the overall height and how that jives with its neighbors.
Yeah, without knowing what the neighbor's height and setback is today. Like the 12 feet that we see on lot number 5 appears half the distance to the street, just in this overhead, but that's the only reference that we have today. But
Commissioners, Dennis Fernandez, Architectural Review and Historic Preservation Manager. Just wanted to remind you that this similar discussion came up on the project across the street during the PD review process, and ultimately the commission determined it was appropriate to have requested a note be added to the site plan, but enabled the Architectural Review Commission to adjust the setbacks and height, I believe it was 5 feet, up to a 5-foot distance in that particular instance during the certificate of appropriateness review process to allow for more compatible setting to the Tampa Heights district. So if that's a desire of the commission, you can certainly verbalize that into a motion, but that would have to be in the form of a note being added to the PD to authorize you to do that.
Thank you, Dennis. General?
I'm struggling with some of the same items. Not only that, which I think we just heard, we can put some riders on this motion if we go that route for future reference. What I'm really struggling with, which is typically what I struggle with when we see parcels like this, is I feel like we're trying to put too much on it. Historically, we've got 3 lots here. Now we're trying to get 5. Even 4, I think, would potentially, as I look at this aerial, seems to go more with what I'm seeing in the neighborhood. You know, this is just, obviously what we're seeing is just this one little block, but this
I think
particular,
this lot in particular, because it's sandwiched in between 2 structures that look, I know that the west structure is not actually historic, but it appears to be, and has the size of what we would have assumed to have been there in 1920. And then we're like jamming the 5 in between these 2 structures.
and again, I can appreciate the detached versus what we're seeing so much of these days with attached townhome scenarios. But when you throw 5 on this particular parcel, then you've got your fencing, you've just got all these moving parts, which is why I was asking the question of kind of the lot coverages and just trying to get an idea of footprint here, because it just looks like a lot.
I'd say even like the 5-foot side yard setback of lot number 1 to its west neighbor. We're also used to seeing a little bit more detail on how this sort of integrates with the neighborhood that it's sitting in, and I think that's sort of where there's like, I'm not sure, and I'm not the only one giving feedback, but I'm not sure even where we would ask for, like, we'd probably ask for 5 feet of movement on property number 1 to the west, and then I struggle with the front yard setback of number 5, but I also agree with the density in between these 2 lots that it sits within.
Yeah, because in this particular scenario, we're stuck with a hard number of 5 feet.
This is the setback from the lot line on the side lot lines. I mean, that's what they're proposing. Normally it's 7. In order to make this a little bit, to make these houses, they are not dissimilar to the historic pattern. I know that they are, we're shrinking it, but I still feel as though if we can just get a note on the PD that when it comes back for a certificate of appropriateness that we can adjust. We can look at the setback, the front setbacks and the heights and adjust them up to 5 feet if possible. I think that's a reasonable request. Hopefully, they will come back with a little more variety on the front porches, which seem to have been recently changed. I would like to see them have a little bit more difference in the architectural expression of the porches, particularly the columns. I'd like to see a little more information about landscaping, because that can really make a development like this, look much, to fit into the neighborhood much better. And I would remind my fellow commissioners that we have just approved something across the street that is also quite dense.
Yes, I think my concern is property across the street, for example, sits next to a commercial building, modest in size, totally different vernacular.
Mm-hmm.
The property that we're looking at today sits in between two craftsman style, almost residential looking,
Mm-hmm.
that are sort of fixed there. They are built a certain amount off the ground, and they are a certain height, and they have a certain setback, and we don't know what any of those are today.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even though it's across the street, it's different. And that's what I'm struggling with, is I know what's about to happen across the street. But then when I'm seeing what I'm seeing here sandwiched in between these two properties, and then I look behind that and see what's there, that's where I'm struggling a little bit, and unfortunately, these are the hard ones when it comes to development.
And part of the hard part of this development too, and is the working intent to keep these 5 dwellings on fee simple lots,
Mm-hmm.
which in the long term is going to maintain their individuality with those owners and future owners for that matter. All sorts of different things can change or be upgraded as time goes by. This is something that would not happen in a more combined sort of a circumstance like you would find in a townhouse development or in an HOA or anything else of that nature. I think what we're looking at here is an attempt to make some economic sense of this redevelopment through a higher density where we're, as you say, we're squeezing some certain things together in order to make the unit counts work. And I don't have a problem with that, because we see this. We're looking at some of these elevations, and we see somewhat larger houses, but the pattern we see here is not a whole lot different than the shotgun developments we've seen throughout the older parts of the city to begin with, where they are built at cheek to jowl.
Yeah, I'm not fundamentally at ends with what they're proposing. I just don't understand how well they will relate to their neighbors, because I don't have an understanding of how their neighbors.
You want that front to back relationship, you want to take a look at the height, you're interested in the overall height and how that works with that street frontage. And I think those are things that we can look at in greater detail at the appropriate time for the certificate of appropriateness.
And when I mention height, I'm actually talking not only overall height, but I'm also talking, historically. I think we typically see that elevation to be more than 18 inches from the ground. We're going to know this is new construction when we're driving down the road once it's built, but the mindset here is you do, but you don't, and one question, and maybe you guys can answer this, because one thing we've not discussed since I've been on this commission anyhow is we typically have setbacks that are very distinct, hard numbers. But can we put on this the flexibility of being able to potentially move to where we keep setbacks from wall to wall a certain amount, but one setback may be 4 foot, one setback may be 7 feet, to once again give a little more flexibility.
Well, what we're looking at here, we can see the site plan right now. We have the residential commercial building to the west, which seems to be very, very close on its front lot line. And then we have the residential on the eastern side, which has a bit of front yard involved with that thing, a much greater setback. And perhaps maybe one of the things that might be of interest would be for the designers to take a look at how they modulate those two different setbacks with the development of their 5 dwellings. You know, that might be something that they might want to take a look at, as how it fits within its street front and its buildings, and its neighboring buildings. There's a number of little detail items that they could take a look at. That's a detail, I think, that belongs really in the certificate of appropriateness. As a PD, what we're looking at is 5 dwellings, residential, be simple, with a carve out for some commercial parking. And then the rest of the details of exactly what this is going to look like and mass like come at a future date. And we could put some certain wiggle rooms in here, because technically the setbacks that we see here, front, back, and sides, get cast in stone at this time, unless we ask for an ability to make some changes involved with that. And asking for that, let's say it gets approved, it also gives our client and their agents the ability to modulate that, also not being entirely locked into stone on that matter as well too. All we're doing at that point in time is raising the flag, saying these are issues that need to be resolved before this comes back to us for certificate of appropriateness. Am I off base here?
Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. And if I could just ask all the commissioners, I understand we're all wearing our masks, just make sure you're speaking as loud as possible into the microphone. But I just want to verify, Mr. Chair, that this process that you're going through right now, you are approving the setbacks that are proposed by the site plan.
Correct.
Okay, I couldn't quite hear whether or not you said that, but I just wanted to verify that you are, what you are determining is whether or not you approve or recommend to City Council to approve the setbacks as proposed in the site plan.
That is correct.
Okay.
But we can make conditions.
You could put a note on the site plan regarding, as Mr. Fernandez stated, you know, that 5-foot, you know, buffer for the front to adjust the front setbacks. That's a note that you can put on the site plan, but again, City Council makes that final decision whether or not
Correct.
this should be approved for the rezoning.
That is correct. Is there any further question or comment? Do I have a motion on this?
I move to recommend City Council approve ARC 21-440/REZ 21-96 for the property located at 404, 406, and 408 East Oak Avenue for the proposed rezoning from PD to PD, with the following conditions: that a note be added to the site plan that allows for 5-foot variations in the front, side, and rear setbacks, as well as 18 inches of elevation from grade and 5 foot of overall building height for each of the 5 properties. For reasons that the alignment and scale are consistent with the district.
Do I have a second on this item?
Commissioners, can I just make a suggestion on your motion? That you apply that to the primary structure, because when we get into the accessory structure, we start dealing with transportation setback standards.
And do we want to, I heard 18 inches, do we want to amend that? Or are you giving a variation there?
We have 18 inches that we can go up or down. All stated conditions apply to the primary structures only.
And then upon your determination, if you move that forward, if you could speak with the agent and just have them agree to that condition of the note, if they choose to do so.
That is correct, Dennis. But we have yet to have a second on this. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Now we ask the applicant. To the applicant, do you understand the conditions as stated and accept those?
David Mechanic for the record. Well, I'm not sure I could say I accept them. We are not objecting because we would like to go forward with the zoning hearing. But there are physical constraints that my client has to deal with, you know, in terms of if you compress the site to create larger setbacks, that creates other problems internally. So we can't pre-agree to design it any which way you all decide, but we don't object to having a condition that allows for a discussion of those changes, those types of changes. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, sir, it does. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, excuse me, Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. Are you, excuse me, Mr. Mechanic, are you objecting to the note being placed on the site plan? That's what their motion
I
was.
just said we are not objecting to the condition. What I said prior to that was, I am not saying pre-agreeing that we could do anything that the ARC may ultimately choose to request, but I'm not objecting to the condition.
So you are, excuse me, one moment. So you are agreeing to the notion of placing these notes onto your site plan?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
So you are agreeing to the notion that that notes to these three conditions
Yes, sir.
may be placed on your documents?
We've agreed to adding the note.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye, raise your right hand.
Aye.
Against? None. Motion carries for recommendation from rezone PD to PD for ARC 21-440, rezone 2196.
So Elaine, before we commence, we're gonna have to do another swear in Beverly.
Need additional storage.
Anyone that has not been sworn, please stand and raise your right hand. Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide in this evening is the truth and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, again, Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation Staff. The next item on the agenda this evening is for also a recommendation for a rezoning. The case number is ARC 22-21/REZ21-91 for the property located at 1909 North Florida Avenue. This is the rear parcel of 1909 North Florida Avenue. The request is for to rezone from CI, which is commercial intensive, to RM24, residential multifamily 24. I have a brief photo presentation for you, and I'll go ahead and start that now. Again, this property is located in the Tampa Heights Historic District. You can see it on the district map highlighted in green here. It is, again, located in the southern portion of the district. This is the 1920 Sanborn map. You can see Ross Street just to the north of the green parcel. Florida Avenue is located to the west of the block. So we have Florida Avenue here and Ross Avenue is the east to west street. This is the present day aerial of the site. There is still an alley that runs to the west and to the south of the subject site, which is currently vacant. And this is a shot looking, a photo looking south at the subject site. This is the property directly to the east, a non-contributing, non-historic building. And to the west of the subject site, here is the alley. And the rear and north side of the property facing Florida Avenue. And then looking across the street, we have a contributing structure on the north side of Ross Avenue. Just to the east there, there's another contributing structure. And then this is a view looking east along Ross. And then looking west toward Florida Avenue. So at this time, I will ask the applicant to come forward and provide their request. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for your time. What we're here for before you all tonight is just to ask.
Can you please state your name for the record?
Oh, Stephen Ashkenazi. I am the owner of the property. What we are seeking tonight is the approval from the ARC just for the rezoning from the CI to the RM24. We have a separate meeting where we'll talk about what we actually plan on building, going through the certificate of appropriateness on the planned residential structure, but tonight is just to get the approval from the CI to the RM24, which is consistent with, as she pointed out, all the other residential, or all the other lots in the surrounding area that are not on Florida Avenue have this same RM24 zoning. So this is just to make this particular lot that was once part of the lot to the west split, to have the zoning corrected to the RM24 designation. That's it for tonight. I'm open to any questions.
Staff, you have a presentation?
Yes, for the staff report, Commissioners, staff finds that this application is consistent with Chapter 27, 113A2J with regards for applications for rezonings to review and recommend reasonable land use changes to the extent necessary to preserve the historical integrity and appearance of the Tampa Heights Historic District. Since this is a request to rezone from one Euclidean zoning category to another, there is no site plan requirement for this. I will show you what the, if we can bring up the screen again here for on the computer. I have a map here that shows the subject site, which is sort of this bluish color outlined here. Florida Avenue runs north-south. Ross Avenue runs east-west. You can see there's a slight color difference here showing that the existing zoning for this parcel is the CI commercial intensive category. And you can see how the rest of the area, except for the PD portion to the south, is RM24, the requested zoning category. And then this is just pulled out a little bit, showing you a view of the larger area, so you can see the additional RM24 zoning that goes almost up to Columbus Drive. And with that, I'm available if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Is there any public comment on this petition? Hearing none and seeing none, we will continue. Would the applicant like to make any rebuttal at this time?
Do any of the commissioners have any questions?
Well, yes, please, let me continue with that. Excuse me. Thank you very much. Commissioners, questions?
When we make our motion, do we, should we state that there was not a site plan presented today?
Not necessary.
That's not, a site plan is not needed for this, rezoning classification.
So there's, like, we won't be locked into any kind of setbacks similar to the last case?
Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation Staff. The setbacks that apply will be those that apply to the RM24 zoning district. For your information, that is 25 feet on the front, 7 feet on the sides, and 20 feet in the rear for the primary structure. And then there is a maximum height limitation of 60 feet. However, for each foot of building height above 30 feet, the required yard shall be increased by 1 foot. So there's a step back design to the massing of the structure.
And we're confident that those code-regulated setbacks are consistent with the adjacent properties or the properties on the block?
With the front yard setback, Commissioner, this is what we usually have a little difference with the underlying zoning districts, but since it is in a historic district, then we look for the sort of the average between the two adjacent properties to make sure that that the setback of the proposed project is consistent with the pattern along the block. And that's provided for in the zoning code.
Sir?
I was just gonna say, it's a more restrictive zoning, so that's why they don't need a site plan.
I couldn't hear. What? I couldn't
I was
hear.
just making the comment, it's a more restrictive zoning.
Any
I have
further-
no comments.
And I have no comment at this time. The applicant at this time is allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal.
I'll just add a clarification that the alley to the west of this property was vacated. So that is part of our parcel, or half of, the east half of that alley is now part of our parcel, but not necessarily rebuttal, but just providing that insight. But otherwise, you know, as she showed on that graphic, we're the only lot that is actually does not have the RM24 zoning other than the PDs in this immediate vicinity. So we just are asking that our zoning be consistent with the surrounding areas.
Understood. Thank you very much, sir. At this point in time, I'd like to close the public hearing and open this up to a commissioner discussion.
I move to recommend City Council approve ARC 22-21/REZ 21-91 for the property located at 1909 North Florida Avenue for the proposed rezoning from CI to RM24 with no conditions.
Do I have a second for this motion?
I'll second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Nay, none. Motion carries for the recommendation of rezone for ARC 2221 rezone.
Thank you for your time.
REZ 2191.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Commissioner. Ron Veal, I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Moving to the next case on this night's agenda, which is ARC 21-406. This is for the address of 203 West Vern Street and 202 West Beach Place. This is in the Hyde Park Historic District. The request in front of you this evening is for a certificate of appropriateness for new construction for a primary structure wood site improvements. The structure is approximately 2,700 square feet, and it's going to take on the vernacular of a craftsman-style home. Past action, that in 2000, in November 2000, there was a contributing structure there. It was reviewed and approved by this board to be demolished with the findings and facts that were presented that evening. Currently, we have a vacant parcel, and I'm going to quickly go through the photo presentation. The area that's highlighted here in the green parcel indicates the structure that was removed. This is the project portion that faces Vern. Then there is this portion here that abuts an alley. There is an alley that runs parallel to Bayshore. Bayshore is here. And then there's a little spur to an alley that comes in that will access the parking area. And this is Beach Place, as you see here. So it's this parcel here and this parcel here. You see the front yard averaging that was consistent in 1929. Through the presentation this evening, you're going to see the footprint of the structure that was removed, and then how the new construction is going to complement the footprint. This is our vicinity map. Very small to kind of come in and zoom into the area. It's in this quadrant over here. It's on the northern portion and the eastern portion of the local district of Hyde Park. This is Hyde Park, Bayshore Boulevard, to kind of get your bearings. And it's just off of Bayshore Boulevard and Vern. This is looking from above. These are indicating the two parcels. This parcel here that's on Vern had the contributing structure that was removed, and just to the northeast is the empty parcel that is currently there that will house the parking associated with this request. This is looking at the subject site after demolition of the contributing structure. Just looking at some of the amenities. This is a sidewalk leading to Bayshore. Subject site is over here. This is an alley that runs parallel, as I spoke about. This is the sidewalk down Vern. You see the other contributing structures that are associated, and you see the setbacks that are established and that were there in 1929. This is looking down Vern towards Bayshore Boulevard, and in the other direction. This is the abutting house. This is a period home, which is a contributing structure. This is directly across Vern. This is 345. This is the alley that I spoke of that runs parallel to Bayshore. Subject site is over here. This alley has two surface materials. It has an asphalt, and then it has brick as you continue down the brick alley that is here, and then there's a little spur that comes in here. The bricks are protected by ordinance. The brick should remain as part of this alley. If they need to be relayed, they should be inventoried, palletized, and then relayed in the same location that they are currently, or at least used in the alley that is currently there. This is looking at the alley as it intersects into Vern. And then just to conclude once again, Bayshore Boulevard, Vern, this is the alley that runs to the east of the subject site. There, you see the two parcels, how they're not connected. There's a little alley that runs there that will act as an access into the parking area. That alley is a brick alley as well. And then you see the rest of the fabric that's here along Vern. That concludes the photo presentation. At this time, I will have the agent address the board, and they have been sworn in.
Good evening. I'm Sean Luttrell with Luttrell Architecture. I also have our project manager, Ali Gill, behind me in case any technical questions should come up during the presentation. But I think for the most part, I'll be able to handle the majority of this presentation. Our drawings are a little bit further along at this point than you might wish them to be. So I'm going to rifle through some of these sheets, and you can choose to ignore them. If you want to come back to anything in particular, we certainly can do that. But we're going to focus on, I think, the items that are most critical to the board. I just want to state for the record that we truly value and respect your time and your efforts on this board. Both city staff has been extremely helpful, and our intent is to follow along those guidelines that they presented us throughout this process. We've already spoke about the site. Again, our intent is to meet the context of this neighborhood, with the exception, of course, of 345 Bayshore, which sits across the street. Our goal is to present something that is both the scale and architectural style that represents the fabric of this neighborhood, which has evolved over time, but still started out as a two-story house type of community, which has evolved to office spaces, oftentimes with apartments above, and that's what we're proposing on this project. One clarification, the FEMA maps do require us to slightly raise the finished floor elevation of the property. There's nothing much we can do about that, but we've included the FEMA map for reference. The base flood elevation for this area is now 12 feet with freeboard of additional 12 inches, so we're at 13 feet in AVD. The site sits at about 9 feet, so our finished floor elevation will be approximately 4 feet above grade at the location of the primary structure. I think Ron has handled this pretty substantially. These are just images of the site. Okay, site plan first. On the left-hand side, you see, actually, here we go. My apologies. So on the left-hand side, you see the proposed structure, which is 2 stories, again, elevated approximately 4 feet above grade. And on the right-hand side, you see the parking to accommodate that structure. The ground floor is offices. We suspect there'll be 2 office spaces. The upper level will be 2 rental apartments. That is effectively the program for this project. We've accommodated the parking primarily on the adjacent lot, which is owned by the same ownership. The alley separating the 2 will be the entry point into the site. So as you can see right there in the middle, there is an abandoned alley, which will serve as the entry point into the site for vehicle access. The one ADA spot is accommodating the office space, which is located here on the left-hand side, right next to what is our ADA ramp. Again, I don't think this matters to you too much, but this is the floor plan layout with our office spaces in there. And this is the upper level with the apartment units. As you can see, we have 2 apartment units separated by a staircase. There is a small rooftop terrace. This is 1 block away from Bayshore. So the owner had a request that they would like to be able to go on that rooftop terrace during Gasparilla and be able to view Bayshore. However, as you can see from, and I'm going to zoom in on this front elevation, it's not noticeable. This is the perspective from 5 feet, which would be the eye viewpoint of a human adult standing on the street in front of the project. And this is what you'll see. You'll have no indication there is a small rooftop terrace up there. This perspective on the lower right is the back of the property, and that is mostly to accommodate the ADA ramp with a secondary entrance there. Again, our elevations, the primary elevation, the front elevation here being on 203 Vern. The rear elevation facing the abandoned alley in the rear. This is the side elevation, which will be facing the neighboring property. And this elevation here, as you can see, the bottom level is staggered a bit to meet the site constraints. This is facing towards Bayshore. As I mentioned, we're a little bit further ahead on this, but we've developed the signage package, which is consistent with other commercial projects we've noticed on this street, and we are trying to match that to some degree. Our wall sections are pretty far along. As you can see, the intent is that we will have a masonry stem wall with wood frame above, all of which will be wrapped with a hardy fiber cement siding with a 7-inch exposure. We do have some tapered columns sitting on pedestals. The lower portions of these columns will be wrapped in brick with a brick veneer. And we do have some material palettes that we'd like to show as well. For those of you architects and interior designers on the board, we use Bluebeam in Office, so going back to Adobe Acrobat's a little foreign to me, so apologize if I'm stumbling here a little bit on the zoom in and zoom out. As far as the roof, we are using a metal roof, 5V crimp metal roof, consistent with the neighborhood. The soffits, we have a beaded hardy soffit panels. The idea, the owner would prefer that this structure be well insulated. So spray foam insulation will be applied, so there won't be vented attics or overhangs along the sides. So this will be a hard soffit. The porch ceiling will be a knotty pine. These are images of what the siding should look like. Similar with the window treatments, there will be similar siding treatments as you're seeing in these images. I mentioned the bottom portion of the foundation up to the finished floor elevation is masonry, but we're going to wrap that with a brick veneer. At this point, we're thinking a whitewashed brick veneer, but that is subject to change. We haven't run this by the owner yet. So some of these colors are to be determined. The rooftop paver system is somewhat undecided, but we know it's going to be a tile type of system that will meet hurricane code, of course. The front entry, we're repurposing some of the brick pavers and matching the abandoned alleyway. So the image on your left demonstrates what the entryway will look like from the street. The front porch, we're proposing composite wood decking just for longevity purposes at the owner's request. And on the rear ramp, we're proposing stainless steel railings. Again, that portion of it with the stainless steel will be facing towards the rear and won't be a prominent elevation. That'll be noticeable by anybody on any of the side roads. The casing details, we're kind of showing this again as far as how we're going to treat the windows. We've shown both, in a picture as well as a detailed drawing that we've begun, and details of how the columns are to look as we continue to develop the drawings. And we have images of the windows. So the windows, as you can see, on the front elevation, I believe we have some double paired, which we think is more consistent with the period. But they are double hung windows. What we're showing right now is vinyl. And if that is an issue for staff, we will certainly reconsider that. The front door elevations are here. These are 2 3-foot doors, so 72 inches by 80 inches, Craftsman, knotty alder wood, clear with 9 light, red mahogany stained, and then we have the active doors on the rear side as well. There are decorative roof brackets, which we've integrated. Again, I mentioned that the soffits are to be sealed, so these will be strictly decorative. And door hardware. Where possible, we will have this type of door hardware on the rear where the ADA access is. Of course, we'll have lever handles, but at this point, this will be the front door hardware. A colonial kind of style. The ceiling, we're proposing that we have a lantern-style lighting hanging from the front porch, also adorning the door entries with side lights, and there is the request for a ceiling fan on that front porch as well. And I believe that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioner. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. The request in front of you this evening is for a certificate of appropriateness for new construction of a primary structure with site improvements. Moving forward, the staff's finding that this application is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines with the plans that we reviewed on December 15th, 2021. With the plans that we reviewed, we had some conditions associated with that review process. The first one is to indicate the handicap parking and the path to the new construction to be code compliant, which he had showed us on the rear. Handicap access parking should be the closest spot possible to entering the building, and he's provided that in the rear. To provide examples of all the hardscape materials, to include the walkways, sidewalks, alleys, and pavers. He has some areas of the parking that I believe needs additional discussion. The alley, the retention of the pavers, the brick pavers that are there, the historic pavers that are there that should be maintained and reused in a public realm. And then the sidewalks and walkways to the structures need to be called out as well. If additional information is required by the board to discuss the FEMA requirements to meet elevation from grade. The door package, he's showing a double door. His inspiration was a period structure. Period structures usually have one entry door, and if you want to have more of a grand opening, then you provide side lights and a transom. But the double doors are foreign to this application. The paired windows, as he related to, should have a wider mall bar in the middle as they come together. That act as a weight pocket for the double windows, so that should be reflected on the drawings as well. The windows that were provided this evening showed a true vinyl window. In Hyde Park, we have been consistent in approving a vinyl cladded window. So more discussion on the windows. The railings, there's quite a bit of railings that were presented this evening, and he touched upon that. I don't know if that was enough inspiration for you. And then lastly is just additional discussion on the roof plan, showing the site-specific details that he has here and the location to the bay that they want to experience. That cutting into the roof is sensitive to that specific location, and discussion amongst the board members to see if that's acceptable. That concludes my portion of this presentation, and I'll be here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ron. I open this hearing for public comment. Do we have any comment? Hearing none, seeing none, we will proceed. Commissioners, questions?
If we could have you back up to discuss some of the conditions that Ron just walked through.
Did you want to ask me specific ones or just go through his comments?
Well, we can run through them
Okay.
together.
Perfect.
So there were some questions or some clarifications needed at the hardscape, so, if you could call out all of your walkways, sidewalks, alleys, parking area, et cetera.
Sure. Let me get back to the site plan here. So, this section here of the abandoned alley, we are aware of that there will be the need to salvage any brick pavers that are there and reutilize them. Our civil engineer mistakenly put this as asphalt. That was his wish, but we understand and totally agree that this will be brick. The portions over here on the parking area are pretty straightforward. The hatch patterns are brick. This portion over here in the gray, he's suggesting that we do this in asphalt because of the turning radius and to eliminate the wear and tear in that specific area. The existing alley has a portion of it is asphalt and a portion of it is brick pavers. Anything that is touched in the, that is damaged or has any issues in this area, of course, will be replaced with the same pavers matched as closely as possible. We've also integrated those brick pavers in the front entry right here at the front porch stairway. This portion of the where the handicap access is, we actually have concrete here, then followed by the concrete stairs which lead up to the back access. And that's pretty much it for the hardscape areas.
In that same vein, how are you handling your walkway in the front?
Well, we do have pavers here, and then I believe right now, is this proposed to be just a concrete stairway? Yeah.
Was it, brick at the front walkway, or?
Brick, correct.
And that will match the, brick that's currently existing on the property?
Yes. The brick that is on this alleyway here.
Okay, and the stub of the alley has been vacated, is that correct? That goes between
I think that he will want to vacate it. The stub, I don't believe has been vacated yet. I think he would like to in the future, but that's not a part of this portion. I believe it's been vacated beyond his parcel. So I think this is a road to nowhere.
Well,
right
that's
now.
not, but that's not the owner, that's the city that has to,
To vacate it.
yeah,
Yeah, he would have to apply to vacate it, correct?
correct.
Yeah, and that, he has not done that. I think his future plans are to request that.
And do you know if there is brick underneath the asphalt?
This is currently, this portion is currently brick, I believe.
Right, the one that leads down to, the portion of the alley that goes to, between Vern and Beach Place, that's all.
I don't know for certain, but I suspect there probably is brick beneath the asphalt.
Okay. And you have you have already gotten the demolition, but it is perhaps helpful for us to see the amount of the lot that was covered by the previous house.
Sure.
Can you?
Yeah,
I think
okay,
you have
so
that in your.
I do. It's the slide just before this. So you can see the footprint of the proposed property is basically working with the condition zoning requirements, which are, further restrictive for the ownership, which have much greater setbacks. On the corner lot as well as the rear, they're pretty dramatic, and then we have a 7-foot side setback. The front setback is dictated by the build-to line, so we measured the properties along the street and set it to that.
I think you have you have the build-to line in red on one of your sheets.
I don't believe we have it in this presentation, but we've done those calculations and worked with city staff to ensure we got it correct.
It was in what we got previously, so I would.
Okay. This is the previous building that was there that's been removed approximately a year ago. As you can see, it's substantially bigger. This side, in fact, came up to the point where the building was actually touching on the property line. The overhang was actually extended over the fence into the neighbor's yard, so the building was draining directly into the neighbor's yard previously. Even on the, we'll call it the southern side, but the southern, as far as the plan north goes, you were substantially closer 9.7 feet to the corner. Our setbacks now on that side, for instance, are 15 feet. We're not requesting any additional setback variances or design exceptions.
And what about your, the tree removal? Are you?
There is one palm tree being removed. I think we have 22 trees that are being preserved.
Wow, okay. And that includes in the parking area, you were able to get that under?
Correct.
underneath
I reviewed our civil engineer's chart, and he had one palm tree being removed solely. That's it.
Okay.
Right now, I believe the parking area is already utilized as parking for some of this owner owns multiple parcels in there and allows the other offices to park in that area.
Mm.
So for overflow parking. So it's basically a grass lot, I believe now.
Do you have, do you know the elevation from grade of the adjacent properties? I understand the
Sure.
FEMA requirement, but I'm wondering what that adjacent property is.
So I looked at those. They're about 3 steps up, which I'm guessing is about 21 inches plus a 4-inch step into the house. So 24, 25 inches above grade is the typical houses in that area. Ours will be approximately 4 feet. So we're about 2 feet higher than the adjacent neighbors, but we're forced to do that per FEMA.
Was there any consideration given to sort of soften that change in elevation from grade on your property?
I wish we had elevations demonstrating all of the houses next to each other, but I don't think it stands out substantially. We do have a greater setback than previous, so at least we have, you know, a 7-foot setback plus the other building setback to kind of contend with. The overall scale of the homes are still 2-story with, you know, roughly 10-foot ceilings in the other houses as well. The other houses do have a higher pitch roof, which we're providing a slightly lower pitch roof in order to kind of make up for that 2 feet. So I think the overall appearance will be roughly the same.
That just that brick sort of base or foundation reads a little heavy, but we can get back to that. Do you have any historic precedents, or had you considered a single entry door with side lights?
We have all the respect for Ron and Dennis, and we will certainly follow their direction as well as yours. So that is a no-brainer for us. If that is clearly the direction to go, and also how we address the windows, we're going to follow those directions.
All right. And then sort of same question for the vinyl clad windows versus true vinyl windows?
Yes, absolutely. Vinyl clad is no problem at all.
Okay. Do you have a roof plan available?
Yes. This is the roof plan. It's essentially a series of hips, with the exception of the point where you access out onto the flat roof section. And again, looking to the east is looking towards Bayshore. The south side is looking towards 345 Bayshore. So while it is the most important elevation for us, it's probably not going to be the best views. This red section here is also for the condensers, for the mechanical systems to be mounted on the roof, which will be screened as well. I know there's a concern about being able to see that. The previous home did have a walkway up to the roof for a roof access and had a mansard roof. So in our design process, we thought that would be acceptable. We did try to hide it as much as possible on the primary elevation. And as you can see, as I pointed out in this view, this is essentially the view that you will get from 203 Vern. And this is the back section facing more to the north, and it won't be nearly as obvious to anybody. This will be facing our parking lot.
Do you have any reference in the district to the stainless steel railings that you're proposing today?
I don't know that we do have any
If you're gonna speak, can you come to the microphone, please? Thank you. And just state your name for the record.
Sure. Hi, my name is Ali Gill. There isn't any stainless steel in our block, so not in 213, 214, and 215, but in the same neighborhood, or the adjacent block, there is some steel. And one sentence in the design guidelines was to, of course, get inspired by the historical character, but also not to mimic all the details. So if possible, to introduce a new material, that would be a great thing. If not, then we would obviously adhere to your restrictions and go back to picket railing or wood or whatever you recommend. Thank you.
And again, this is on the back side of the building, which won't have any prominent visual connection to either street.
You do have railing on the front though, as well.
Correct. In the porch, yeah.
Outside of being stainless steel, do you have an intention for a particular finish for these railings? Or you're looking at bright stainless?
Bright stainless right now for the rear. On the front, I think we'll try to make it more fit into more of the context of the neighborhood. Perhaps we won't do stainless here, but we're evolving that still.
And of course, once we get the colors, the final colors of the corner and the brick, and then we would be able to give a final answer on whether it's going to be black or whether it's going to be stainless steel. But for now, we just didn't define it yet.
On your site plan, have you located where any mechanical equipment will be located?
As of right now, we have all the condensers located on the roof. That is our intention. So we have approximately 109 square feet of flat roof section. We're limited to a very small section in order to provide one means of egress from the rooftop. So we have a very small section for actual usage, and it gives us an opportunity on the other section to section that off and use it as a mechanical yard essentially. It'll be hidden by the roof, so it won't be, unless you're in 3, 4, 5 base or on an upper level, you're not going to notice it.
And that includes all meters or any equipment that would be located on the house?
Electrical meters, water meters, we haven't located those yet, but they won't be on the roof. They will be on the side of the house somewhere.
I don't have any additional questions.
The stair block that leads to the roof, is that a flat roof in itself? Or are you looking at a hip in some fashion that is similar to the rest of your building?
Let me see if I can see a building section through there.
Shed.
Here we go. So, we do have flat trusses in that section. This is to give you an idea. This is the roof access, of course. There's a flat section what we have built up, with enough space for pre-engineered trusses to be flat, and then you have the typical roof leading up to that with the pitched roof. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I see.
Okay.
I see that.
Can you go over your window trim details?
Sure. Are you the images or specifically the details?
Yeah, I want to hear the nominal size, what you're thinking.
Okay. We have 6-inch, 5 1/4, 6-inch Hardy on the top, and we have 4-inch on the sides. We have a 4-inch apron as well with a beveled sill adorning that.
Are there any other questions or?
I think we're all still thinking.
And again, we have a tremendous amount of respect for Ron and his staff. And if there are issues that you bring up or that Ron brings up, we fully intend to integrate those into the design. As you can see, we're trying to make this meet the context of the neighborhood. We're not trying to build something that's inappropriate for that area. We're trying to build something that fits in and looks as close to original as possible. At the same time, still building with more modern materials, which will have better longevity and last for 50 years or more.
Are you able to pull the front elevation back up?
Sure. You want a straight elevation or more of a perspective view?
Either one.
Okay. Sorry, it froze up for a second there. This is the front elevation.
So your overall building height from grade would be, I don't see that.
So
There we go.
we have a measurement here of 32'8" from finished floor elevation, and we're approximately 4 feet above that, so 36'8" from grade. Now that is measured to the very top peak where we're walking onto the balcony. That's not measured to the top of the main roof.
So the top of the main roof would be,
That's 29'5" plus an additional 4 feet, so 33'5".
and did you say you did have reference heights for the adjacent property, or you did not?
Well, we looked at images. We know that the houses there on the first floor at least have roughly a 10-foot ceiling plus structure, plus at least an 8-foot on the upper level. So by our calculation, and they're elevated approximately 2 feet above grade. So they're about 28 feet plus or minus above grade.
Ron, do you have a photo of the adjacent property, the front facade of it?
That's the only contributing structure. This is the most closest house that shares a common property line with the subject site.
So that is the house on Vern.
That's correct.
Okay.
So with that picture, has there been any thought in this particular design of increasing those roof slopes to potentially try to hide the piece that's accessing the roof?
We certainly could do that, but we were concerned that we were going to get into some height restriction issues with the overall roof height, trying to balance out the ARC with city zoning.
Ron, I've got a question regarding this particular district and finishes on like the siding. I know in the past we have, in many instances, asked for, it to be wood rather than hardy or concrete board. And in other districts, we're okay with this particular district. Are we okay with with using these type of materials?
For new construction, we are. When we do additions to contributing structures, then we try to stay period appropriate with the materials. But this is from the ground up.
Okay.
And then the installation package that he showed, he had one illustration that shows that the siding butts into the trim, which is a period detail. Some houses have that the trim is applied over the siding. There's different applications. But what he expressed today, that the hardy board dies into the trim, but there's still a slight reveal on the trim.
And do you know what the current height restriction would be for the zoning in this particular property?
I believe it's 35 feet above design flood elevation. So it'd be 39 feet from grade. And I think we're at 32 is what we said, 32 and change.
When looking at this property just as an example and knowing that your surrounding properties are probably similar because they were all built before the FEMA change, I just wonder if there's any consideration that you could give to sort of lighten that weight of your front elevation with, I think it's that heavy brick and the sort of beefy welcome walls.
Okay.
It just feels really strong against these sort of almost delicate craftsman style houses that are adjacent to your property.
It's like
Sure.
on the previous photograph, it does have a brick foundation to it, but it also has a very, very heavy band between the siding of the house and the brick of that foundation. And I think that's one of the, elements like that are part of the detail package that's probably missing here that would help ameliorate some of the scale differences that you have here. The other element too is how this brick appears as well too. It doesn't have to be real, but there could be some crawl space aesthetic in terms of how the front of this may be cladded or screened in some fashion.
Okay.
There are a number of different ways where you can break that up. I understand height, I know why it's there, that there needs to be some element of this broken down into a more palatable scale.
Sure. We do, it doesn't show very well on this elevation. Let me see if I can go. We do have a soldier course on at the beginning, upper level of the brick. In fact, there it is right there. So we are starting to break that down a little bit. Also, our elevation was drawn to 5 feet. So this is a little bit misleading. We're actually going to be at 4 feet. So we're going to be reducing that by another foot, which will be helpful. We could also look at other options. I think this owner is a big fan of landscaping, and I think landscaping beds that may be terraced down towards it would be something he would be certainly open to, which would address that at a half height above, between grade and finished floor elevation. If we can put some nice landscape beds in there, I think he would be excited about that.
I think that the stainless steel railing may also need to just be reconsidered. I understand bringing in new materials, but I think like the combination of that heavy weight of this front facade, we have the metal roof, and then that harsh metal horizontal railing, it's just getting very.
I think certainly on the front.
Yeah.
I think the back railing, typically, or a lot of times, people would try and do that in aluminum, and it really, it doesn't look as, it doesn't get that sort of see-through airiness that we can get with the stainless, and I think that is also something to be considered. And also in the back, there's going to be a large parking area and so a lot of trees and such, so I think that
Softened.
will be something that is, I think, quite natural back there.
But I'm thinking perhaps maybe a change of orientation is in line here. I understand the need for durable material in a marine environment, which makes perfect sense. Definitely would like to see some sort of color coordination once that's determined with the rest of the building. That's the front, the back, and the rooftop for that matter. But I think perhaps the orientation of the elements that make up these railings going the wrong way.
Okay.
Instead of being horizontal, why not vertical as in a picket and top rail? Something, for all of this, because that is what is in the district. It is, you have a very traditional structure that's doing some very contemporary things. That the railing is a big miss here. And I think it's detracting more from your aesthetic than this brick foundation.
And a more substantial top rail to go with the substantial size of the building, I think would.
And then you still have your lace effect.
Yes. We'd be happy to relook at all the railings and bring them up to what the expectations would be, and we can work with city staff in doing that.
Steve, do you want to see all of the railings, or?
I think the railings as the package should be of the same language.
I would be
front, back, top.
I would be fine with the top and the back being a little different than the front, but so we can discuss that. Okay.
If you guys decide one way or the other and would like to put that as a condition or a note on the site plan, we're happy to abide by it. Our goal is to make it look as appropriate as possible, and your feedback is valued, as I mentioned earlier, and we will certainly fall in line with what is necessary to bring this structure up to the standards of Hyde Park, which is very high.
I don't have any additional questions.
I have no additional questions.
I don't either.
Nor I. We've said quite a bit right now on this project. The applicant has 5 minutes for rebuttal or comment.
No further comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this point in time, the public hearing for this case is closed, and the commissioners will now discuss the case. Who's up?
I can open. I think the concern about the foundation will resolve itself between landscaping and them working with staff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not as concerned about that as I am about the railings. The railings, I think it's the orientation. I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Mm-hmm.
The rear railings and the one on the roof, even though they are very foreign to the historic fabrics of these neighborhoods, because they are in the rear and on the roof, you're not going to really see them. I kind of, I'm like, Dan, because you can see through them, will they hide themselves and actually be less noticeable than what we're typically see with the vertical pickets and more substantial, rails in themselves. The roof line is always a sticking point, obviously, for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the perspective that he showed us, that you can't see that, but I have to believe this much higher than the rest of the roof, you're going to see it from somewhere. But it's the only way to access the roof. And I realize why we're trying to get there.
Mm-hmm. Well, in that same vein, if I were to make a particular change, rooftop, the building has this aggregate of hip roof forms, and I would personally like to see a small hip roof cap on that stair myself. because I'm looking at this detail right now, and I see the detail they're doing with the brick. Perhaps they might want to consider at some point in time, looking at more robust sections at your corners. There's still the thought of you can still lower this and do a barge board on top of it, as well as the plantscaping as either a system right onto it or as with planters to help mitigate that overall height. I think that can work out very well. But one of the things that I think needs to be taken a look at here is also another foreign material that we have right here in this elevation, and it's the concrete stairs. Now, I don't have a problem with the concrete stairs. I think it's just a matter of coordination. But there needs to be some sort of a color coordination on this, what could be raw concrete versus what is the pavers on the ground level versus what is the fit and finish on the deck level. I could certainly see concrete stained at an appropriate color to make a coordination or a match.
Or even, the crushed shell look. I mean, there's a lot of options.
There's lots of fit and finish options, which we're not there for this project at this point in time, and those will need to be addressed and coordinated with staff normally to begin with.
Which leads you on up to the front door.
Well,
and I think they're sound to be agreeable with a door with side lights and the trends on which will be,
or something of that nature. A grand door with some sort of combination.
Which is what you would have seen.
Exactly. The same thing with the ganged windows, which we only see on the side, but nonetheless, some sort of a dimensional mold that would space them out a little bit more. That I think is a necessary detail that staff brought up, and really dovetails in the historic character for wood frame structures throughout the district in itself. It's either that or remove the gang in itself. That's a coordination item, and do 2 punched windows in some sort of proximity to one another. But they're ganged there in their location for a particular purpose in their floor plan, I have to assume, and I'm willing to go with that. But they still need some sort of a functional dimensional mold.
Yeah, I agree.
See, we're looking at this. I'm looking at this stair right now. This rampant stair. I don't have a problem with the laciness. I understand how it is. But to me, if this were in the more vertical in its orientation as opposed to the horizontal, even though there's a lot of it here, I think the laciness remains. It's the same material, it's the same small scantlings to it. It's just in a format that's very consistent seen throughout the district, whether it's aluminum or metal or steel or wood. Everything is done with, most everything done is with pickets.
I think we do get a peek of this rear railing as well from the front. I don't think it's fully enclosed from the front view.
I think this is something they need to take a look at, as well as its color coordination with their finishes. It could be point, counterpoint, it could be a match, it could be any one of a number of different things. It could even still be stainless steel if that's the coloration point, charcoal gray on the building as an example. That would be a great fit as a color coordination.
Yeah,
but
I would be comfortable saying the railings need to be reconsidered to be more appropriate with the district. What they come up with should just be approved by staff.
And coordinated with staff.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Okay.
We're looking at this and you're talking about the roofscape, being so shallow, where we have steeper roofs, in many places in the district. But I still see this as being very appropriate, because I think of some of the Italianti revival buildings that I have some familiarity with in my hometown of Portland, and that's all you see is that cornice line even though there may be a low slope roof behind it in one form or another. And I think that's an entirely a working aesthetic in this kind of location, particularly one where you're already lifting the house far off the grade level. I think it's handled very nicely, personally, myself. Because he's got the deep overhangs, he's got that rhythm of bracket behind it, the dentals, if you will. There's an awful lot going here. Another element too that I think that might need a little bit of massaging are your welcome walls going down to the stairs in the front. Right now the proposal is a mass welcome wall, which can get kind of tall. You might want to consider giving it a step or two as it cascades down that long flight of stairs to help break up that mass as well too. Because the other thing that's missing here, and we don't see it yet, is I'm assuming that at some point in time in the detailing, there's going to be some sort of a cap on the top of that brick, on top of that masonry.
I think that's a great suggestion.
Because that will also help break down that front considerably.
Yeah, you step that welcome wall, it changes the whole look in the front.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just trying to disguise what unfortunately is a requirement that none of us can
You get away. Yeah, we would all be stuck with the same requirement. I think that's a design element that will add dramatic. Massaging that wing wall, those welcome walls, could offer you some elements of design finesse that would greatly enhance the entire entrance and progression from sidewalk, street side, through to the front yard, to your front door, and it starts right here where this stair starts. That's also a coordination item.
Yeah.
We understand the wing wall, we like them, staff likes them. I think this is part of the scale issue that we have with all of that, if you want to call it, that ponderous brick base. You start breaking it up, it becomes more human.
Yep.
And that's what we're looking at. There's so much there that you almost want to make it nice enough that you actually want to touch it.
All right. Any other items?
We have quite a few conditions.
We do have a few conditions.
Can we condition this and do it on a, have we gone past the number of conditions that we can reasonably have?
I haven't, you guys haven't announced what they're, I heard the discussion, but I haven't heard what officially the conditions are, so we have to go through.
I've got conditions on just adding a note so that all brick is salvaged and reused. I've got coordinate any and all hardware and lighting. I've got
I think
update.
they did a pretty good job with that already, but yet
Well, they let us know that they were not done, yeah. Update plan to reflect brick at front walkway and portion of alley is discussed. Update entry door to be single door with options for side light and transom. Update paired windows to include wider, more historically relevant mullions and patterns. Update window specs to be vinyl clad. Wood windows. All exterior equipment, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, etc. to be screened from view. The railings need to be reconsidered. Exterior finishes are all to be approved by staff, particularly in reference to any metal and concrete. I've got considered design elements at the base, such as banding, false crawl space, to lessen the weight of the 4-foot elevation from grade. And consider alternate / hip roof line at the rooftop access. And then redevelop welcome walls to step down and have smaller scale.
I think you pegged it.
I got a lot of notes. Are we comfortable with these conditions going back to staff?
Yes.
All right.
I think so.
All right.
There's a great number of them, but in their individuality, these would ordinarily be, coordination.
I think you have to ask.
And Commissioner Boyd, when you're speaking, when you're stating the conditions, can you just make sure you speak loud enough so that everyone can hear it? Okay, thanks.
I'm gonna do my best. We move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in ARC 21-406 for the property located at 203 West Vern Street and 202 West Beach Place, with the following conditions: that a note is added to the plan that all bricks currently on site are salvaged and to be reused if they must be removed from their existing location, that any and all exterior hardware is to be coordinated and approved by staff, that the plan is updated to reflect brick at your front walkway and at the portions of the alley as discussed at this public hearing, that the entry door is updated to be a single door with options for side lights and a transom, that all paired windows are updated to include a wider, more historically relevant mullion pattern, that the window specifications is updated to be a vinyl-clad wood window, that any and all electrical, mechanical, plumbing equipment on the exterior of the building be screened from public view, that the railings on the exterior of the building are reconsidered to be more historically appropriate within the district, that all exterior finishes are approved by staff with particular interest to metal and concrete finishes, that the design elements such as banding, false crawl space, etc. is given to lessen the visual weight of the 4-foot elevation from grade. All updates to the elevation must be approved by staff. That a hip or alternate roof line is considered to the stair to the rooftop access and is approved by staff. And that the design of the welcome walls be reconsidered to include steps down and have a smaller, more human scale, and redesigned welcome walls are approved by staff. Because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines for the following reasons: that the scale, trim details, and quality of the district is maintained.
Do I have a second for this motion?
I'll second.
Before we proceed, sir, do you understand and accept these conditions as stated?
Yes, we agree to all conditions.
You agree to all these conditions?
Correct.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to make sure I heard you correctly. We will proceed then. All those in favor of this project moving forward, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Certificate of appropriateness for new construction for ARC 21-406 is approved with noted condition.
Commissioners, Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation Staff. The last item on the agenda this evening is case ARC 22-09 for the property located at 411 East Palm Avenue. This is a property located within the Tampa Heights Historic District. It's currently a vacant parcel. This site was previously before you for a recommendation of a proposed rezoning from PD to PD, and that was approved by City Council in November of last year. With that, I will go through the photo presentation. The subject site is located on Palm Avenue at the corner of Central Avenue. And it is here in green on the 1920 Sanborn map. The site is currently vacant. This is the present day aerial showing the site outlined in green. There is some remaining concrete on the ground from what was previously on the site. But again, you see that it is located at the corner of Palm and Central Avenues. This is looking south onto the subject site from Palm Avenue. This is the property directly to the east on Palm. This is the property across the street on the north side of Palm Avenue. And then this is the property across Central Avenue, to the east. This one is to the east. This is a view looking east along Palm Avenue. And here we are looking west on Palm. This view is looking north along Central Avenue, across Palm Avenue. So the subject site is to your left here. And then we're looking south on Central Avenue. There is an alley that runs behind the parcel. Here we're looking east from behind the parcel to Central Avenue. And then this shot is looking west down the alley in the other direction. So at this time, I would like the applicant to come forward and make the request for the certificate of appropriateness for new construction at this site.
Good evening, Ralph Schuler with JW Architect, and I have been sworn. Just to remind everyone, yes, we were here, I believe in early November to approve the site plan, and then the site plan, which was then approved in, by the by the city council, and then that is now an approved PD site plan, which looks something like this. Put that on the screen for me, please. Here it goes. Up there we go. Let me zoom out. Just to remind everyone what that looked like. We are proposing a 4-unit development, but really what it is it's a single townhouse structure in the front with it looks like a house, but it's 2 units, and then 2 garages with 2 studio apartments above. This was what was again approved at council. The structure to the west, which is here, and then the structure to the east, which was across the street and actually a little bit forward. So we came up with a lot averaging that is, I believe is about a 19-foot setback, but again, that was approved through city council. Just to briefly kind of show you the overall, this is the first floor with the garage, and then this is the roof plan, 2-story and 1-story. Second floor, same thing, 2 townhouse units in the front, 2 1-bedroom dwellings above the garage in the rear, trying to fit within the character of what is established on Palm Avenue on the south side of the street, with 3 contributing structures out of 5 properties left. This being a vacant property, 2 houses which are next to each other, this one and then one further to the west, an empty lot, and then a house in the corner, which have all been converted to office space, but they were originally single-family houses. The elevations we're proposing are here. We're going to stick to a farmhouse vernacular, very permanent in Tampa Heights, of course, with a 5V crimp metal roof, party board siding. We have some vertical board and batten gable ends. We have a large front porch with some hip roofs that are about 3 to 12, 5 12 pitches on the main roof. Again, simple, clean lines that most farm vernacular frame houses have. We do have on the side another gable that pops out, so we don't have just an uninterrupted side porch, side elevation. We have gang windows with 8-inch malls between the windows, of course. A simple spindle type column. The foundation would be stem wall because it's a modern structure. Out of stucco, we do have a small, zoom in a little bit more. Small skirt board at the bottom. A little frieze board at the top, kind of poking out through here. The rear elevation, which would be facing the accessory structure, has a porch, and then the second floor comes over the top of it, and that would be the master bedroom, bathroom. The accessory structure, which is again, 2 garages. This property is potentially to be split into basically 2 structures, or two properties, one east and one west. Each unit would get a 2-car garage, and then a rental unit with one bedroom apartment. That's facing, sorry, that's actually south, that's facing the alley, and this is north, facing the structure backyard, and then the 2 west and east elevations with, again, kind of see that would be the elevation and beyond, which is the balcony cantilevered over the garage is beyond there. Also at a 512 pitch, also has board and batten gable ends. Elevation, sorry, the wall sections of the front porch. We have a 10-foot first floor and a 9-foot second floor, very appropriate to the district. We are approximately 24 to 28 inches above grade. We have a number of, again, 5E crimp galvanized. It's hardy board siding. The siding would have a 6-inch exposure. All the window and jamb details here. So we'd have 5/4 casing. This would be typical head at, this one is 3.5, typical around all of the windows. And then this is our sill detail, our jamb detail here, same kind of connections. And then this is our center mole detail with the separation between the 2 windows, and then a 5¼ inch corner board detail. It all contributes to the overall vernacular. Proposed front door would be something like this, which is again, we'd have 2 of these on the front. So we're trying to make them simple, but elegant. I think we would probably paint them, not be in brown. It's a 3/4 light style door. We're proposing, this is a Sierra Pacific vinyl window, but a very, very good quality vinyl window that has the same exact proportions of a wood window. It's fully removable. We have details to assist with the depth of that, which has been typical. We show a 2x6 wood second floor that then would be recessed 2 inches, which we've done a couple of times here in Tampa Heights, and it's been turned out very nice for that type of window to be inset. A simple, again, this would be on the alley, a simple garage door, kind of a transitional looking lighting, 5 feet crimp galvanized aluminum metal roof, simple black or dark bronze hardware. We are showing some minimal fencing. The fencing, we could probably work out the details with the staff, but it'd be a vertical board and substantial top and bottom rail type fencing, and maybe with a decorative gate that looks like something like this. And that would be proposed in this area here. We have front gate, rear gate. And then to follow up on the condensing units would be all screened behind this gate. Because it is technically 2 separate properties, we'd have 3 here, 2 here, and 1 here, because we are trying to keep these 2 large camphor trees. And that there was only one tree on site, which is a small palm tree that's being removed. That was approved at the city council hearing. And then this is our visitor parking here, which is a ribbon drive up until the property, the face of the structure, and then a solid drive behind as required by transportation. All of our sidewalks and everything would be concrete with score lines and appropriate to the way this neighborhood has been developed, which was primarily concrete. These dash lines here are, once approved, we will have internal half-inch storm system that will collect the water but will not be seen. And I think that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Staff, do you have a report on this?
Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation staff. Staff found that this application is consistent with the Tampa Heights design guidelines. There were some conditions noted in the staff report, and I believe the majority of them were covered by the applicant. I suggest that commissioners review the conditions and see if you have any questions based on the conditions, or obviously any others based on the presentation. I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Is there any public comment? Hearing none, seeing none, we will proceed. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Can you please clarify the type of stormwater system you're proposing?
This is a buried pipe system with underground. You'll never be seen by the naked eye.
So it's a 6-inch pipe with holes in it? Is
No, so again, it hasn't been fully developed yet. We're waiting to get civil engineer on board, but all of the, if we do put gutters and downspouts in areas here, that would be collected and then collected to probably was about a 12 or 18-inch perforated pipe. It's a pretty standard design that is utilized these days. And then when you get over the first half-inch, then it pops off into the street, which is again very typical for a residential style stormwater development.
So this is not visible?
No.
Questions?
Can you clarify whether the soffit is open or closed?
Yes, I apologize, I meant to hit on that. We are proposing a closed soffit. That's where the elevations read. Here, and then, which again is pretty small, see if I can get a little closer. We're talking about doing a hardy beadboard soffit here, and then a fascia, a 6-inch fascia with a 1-inch strip.
And that goes all the way around?
All the way around, yes, sir.
May we talk about and walk through, the note on the staff report is the fenestration into the rear elevation of this accessory structure. I had a couple of notes about your window patterns.
Yep, not a problem. So we have, of course, essentially four dwelling units here. But the accessory structure, of course, has quite a bit of fenestration on all three sides, but the side facing back to the main structure definitely doesn't have a lot of windows. And this is this wall here. We do have a window in the bathroom. We have two very large windows in this bedroom here, facing the street and facing the adjacent property. But to put in another window in this bedroom, we could maybe jam one in here and make it a small, skinnier window. These would be the egress size windows. We'd be open to that, but again, the bed wall really is going to be this wall. There's probably not enough room to put the bed here with this door. So it's the only wall I have for a bed is this wall here.
Without adding windows, I believe that there's still a need to break up that massing on the south elevation. So whether that's done with a change of material or a change in the plane of that wall, it still reads as one really big solid exterior wall.
I understand. I think we could work with staff to find a simple solution to that. Again, we're trying to keep the vernacular as a farmhouse vernacular, but could maybe investigate popping this out a little bit and have either just an eyebrow or even a little gable so that this part would read as a little separate piece. I think that might be a fun thing to do.
And then may we also look at your south elevations of the main structure?
Sure. I think that's under here. There. So that's this.
Will you be dividing the front porch for the two sides?
No, it's open. This is just a piece of
a band on the surface.
Band. It's a banding, correct. If you see in here, it's a completely wide open porch. Now on the rear porch, and we are providing a wall, but that's also required because the second story encloses it as part of the fire requirements. But the front porch is not required to be separated, and we're not proposing to separate it.
I wonder, and decision just has to be made now, but I wonder if perhaps modifying the locations of those two columns, either to one column and then the welcome walls, or to two columns that are less close to each other?
You're leading right into some questions I had, which would lead into, was there any thought put into a single staircase entering the porch, a single walkway?
Yeah, I've done both in the past. I've done several duplex or townhouse type developments that look like this, and we've proposed either single and both have been approved. We're open to. So the reason why I have kind of double welcome walls and then double columns. I understand the columns are relatively close together, but they're about 4 feet apart. If it's the board's liking, we could investigate a single column and/or 2 exterior columns here and here, and a shared walkway.
It just seems to lend itself to be more proportioned that way.
Yeah, I could see either adding 2 and combining the 2 centers to 1 for a total of 5. Or just some sort of, we've got a really, really big space between the left and center, and then a really tiny space between the 2 centers.
And I realize this is a duplex, but that dividing trim piece, is there a reason that you've got that coming vertical?
Again, trying to just break down the fenestration a little bit. It was just a detail that seemed to work, but if you guys don't think it works, we can certainly investigate removing it.
Where we were sort of moving on your accessory structure elevation, I think even like a change of that center portion of the house in material, so whether it's like whatever it is, I won't make any suggestions.
Right.
But taking that center piece and rather than dividing it with one thin piece of material, something that's a little bit more substantial, because those 2 windows also feel very tiny.
The 2 small windows, is there a reason that you've got the twins and then that small square window?
Yeah, so again, I'm trying to align where the best placement of these windows are for what is the dining room, and then aligning them with the bedroom above, which is here. So these align, and then this is the squarish window here. Certainly could investigate more of a 2-foot by 4-foot style window if that feels more appropriate. And again, I have closet spaces here, so, and that's the only place the closets really can go. So that's why they haven't moved inward toward each other a little bit more. Plus, code requires that I have 3 feet minimum between this party wall. So at most I could, if there were no closet here, I could move it in a foot, but again, code requires that those windows have to be a certain distance apart.
I wonder if you were to take that center portion and change that material, then you wouldn't even need those tiny windows.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not.
Or take the twin and make it 2 singles and spread them out.
Spread them out a little bit. But they just feel really small, and that space in between the second story sets of double windows feels like, I see what you tried to do, and I appreciate where you're going, but I think that we can give it like a little bit more presence on its own rather than that little
Okay.
detail in the 2 small windows. Because even in the rooms, I don't think that those little windows are gonna.
Yeah, I don't think they're
give
helping
you
the room.
anything.
We're trying to help the elevation.
The facade, yeah.
Right.
I think we're almost there.
I think that perhaps a change on the first floor would make it unnecessary to even change those windows if we got, if there was, like you move the columns closer together, something of that nature.
We're treating it as one entrance with 2 doors.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, what we would do, I think, would be a column here and a column here, and then a center shared walkway, and then these 3 openings would be nearly identical. Maybe not exactly, but close.
An ABA.
Mm-hmm. But I still think that it's like the T of the second floor with those tiny windows is the scale of those 3 components feels a little funny.
If this was a larger structure, whereas it was a quadplex, or it was more of them, I think I could see some of the dividers, the trim. But with this just being a duplex, some of the stuff just seems a little far, which is why I'm asking some of these questions. Roof material. I see you've got, looks like 5B on the entire structure.
Correct.
Okay.
And may I ask, is the intent in the backyard, there's going to be a wall dividing the yards? Is that?
Yeah, more than likely. Wall or fence.
Okay.
I haven't been fully determined.
And that kind of makes an adjustment to the center of the accessory building a little more difficult.
Well, I would only do the second floor, I
Yeah.
think. I would not do the first floor, if you
Could
remember when we were
Could
discussing.
we see that again?
Yeah. First, second. So again, I'm only proposing to bump out essentially this area here, which is the bathroom,
Mhm.
which then would, again, something along this part would then cantilever 12 to, 15 inches or so.
Yeah, minimal even, it doesn't even need to be that
Okay.
much.
All right.
Well, can we leave that elevation up just
Yep,
for
sure.
one brief
Yep.
moment? Discussion on your garage alley elevation.
Okay.
I see the paneled doors
Right.
that you have for the garage. You showed us, in terms of your materials palette, paneled doors as well too, but the upper series of panels in the photograph of that selection had
Light.
glass lights.
Mhm. Yep.
Is that your intention to have lights, or is it going to be an all paneled door?
So it's on the alley. Currently, the alley is actually a pretty nice alley. It's actually paved. It's in pretty good condition. So I'm on the fence, I'll be honest with you. So I showed this one only because it has very similar proportions. The only difference is that it has these lights.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not 100% sure we need the lights. I think we open to putting lights there, but I guess I think the scale and proportion was more what I was looking for.
Well, I can understand the point of scale. I think what I'm trying to do is, tie down one or the other,
Mhm. Yep.
And
I'm with you.
as an alley, I can honestly say, the idea of having some measure of secured privacy to the contents of the garage is probably a very, very smart move. But it's either one or the other. You ready to pick?
I gotcha.
Okay, good. I agree with my fellow commissioners' points about that front porch. And I think the idea of reconfiguring it slightly so that it reads as a single entrance is equally appropriate to the building type and the nature of the duplex, where there are certain elements that are always shared. And this could be, one of them. And I think that would help dramatically unclutter the center portion of this. Because I don't have a problem with the vertical trim. It's when you take the vertical trim with all the rest of the stuff that's happening in that center, it gets to be a bit cluttered. If you get simplified somewhat more by having the center entrance, if you will, the center stair, the center wing walls, and then put the columns on the more outboard side, I think that cleans up the entire circumstance. Because I could see the point of having that trim board going out, differentiating one person's side versus the others. It's an identity thing. So I can understand why it's there. I do not have a problem with it. I know other people do. We'll take that next step when we need to. I have no other question.
Is the fence that you're proposing a vinyl fence?
Yes.
Is it solid in form, like you won't be able to see through?
Yeah, it's proposed to be solid, yes.
All right. And what is the height on the Central Avenue side?
It would be a 6-foot fence.
And have you considered continuing that fence, the fencing on the Central Avenue side to sort of enclose that accessory structure and the staircase?
Yeah, I think I was kind of on the fence on that, literally. So, we have a little bit of room here, and I was about a foot, so I think we could try and put a hedge there instead of the fence, just because I think it ultimately would look better. I don't think I would really honestly put this fence on the sidewalk. I think we'd push it back a foot also. So therefore, we can have that hedge kind of continuous in front of that fence to soften that a little bit. And so that's really the reason why I didn't want to continue the fence past the parking.
Elaine? Is the vinyl, I have a couple questions. Is the vinyl solid fence something that is consistent with this district?
Vinyl is an approvable material in Tampa Heights. Let me get to. The location of that, I was just thinking about this. There's a sentence in here that reads, in the Tampa Heights design guidelines, that reads that fences or walls along the front yard and along a corner yard along the building facing a street shall be no higher than 4 feet.
Okay.
And beyond the rear of the building, the fence height may increase to the maximum height allowed in the Tampa zoning code, which is 6 feet.
Right, so 4 feet would have been here and here, which we don't have any fencing at all. And then the 6 feet, I'm coming back to this bump out, so it's significantly back from the corner of that building. I want to pronounce that corner as much as possible. We'd only propose it here.
I think it's because it's on the Central Avenue side that it would also need to be 4 feet, is that correct?
That is how the design guidelines read, yes. So it should, anything that's parallel to the building wall needs to be at 4 feet.
Thank you.
In the same, another question about materials. In new construction, do we allow a vinyl window in the Tampa Heights? An all vinyl?
Vinyl windows have been improved in Tampa Heights previously, yes. There are installation methods that have been used on several recent projects that help to make the appearance of the vinyl windows seem a bit more historically appropriate.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
In this case, he's using that inset.
Yeah.
Right.
Did I miss the railing detail? Did you have a railing detail that I missed?
I only have this railing back here, which I don't have a blow up of. I apologize, but it's a pretty straightforward detail.
Just a standard top rail with 2x2 pickets,
Yeah,
is that?
2x6 top rail, 1 by 4, 1 by 4 with vertical 1 inch pickets, spaced at 5 inches on center.
1
So you
inch
have
pickets?
3.5 inch exposure.
Okay.
I don't have any other questions.
All right.
I have no further question myself. Sir? Thank you very much. The applicant is allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal.
I have no more rebuttal, thank you.
At this point, this public hearing is closed on this application. Commissioners will now discuss this case. Any further discussion? You been keeping your list?
I have my list.
And what is your list?
I still don't love the small vertical dividing element between the 2 units on the front elevation. Like we're cutting, I know you're okay with it, but I also don't love the little windows. I think that all of those elements together on the front could just have one simple sort of breakup of the massing piece. And it might be something similar to what he incorporates on the accessory structure.
It just lends itself to me to be more in keeping with the neighborhood if it looks more like even though it is a duplex, a larger single-family home. The front's just very busy as it stands. Now, once we get rid of the two entries, or the staircase, I should say, once the columns are, divided up amongst the porch equally, or as close to equal as you can get, that's going to resolve a lot of that. The two small front windows, to me, just seem foreign. And we really didn't talk about the roof finish itself. I know a lot of, usually we like to see something of this size, more shingles than we do the 5B crimp, but I don't know that I have a problem with the 5B crimp.
I don't have a problem with it at all. I think that it's an appropriate use. It's a very, this is a very kind of farmhouse vernacular project, and I think that the 5B crimp is appropriate.
I think the biggest, like I said, I think the windows seem to be more of the sticking point for all of us on the main structure as well as the accessory structure.
And I understand the reason for not adding windows on the accessory structure, but the massing still needs some way of breaking up that one wall.
Something.
So we've figured out the front porch is good, I think.
I've
It can be
got
coordinated with staff.
Yep, the front porch is I think he proposed
Modified versus
items
center
that could be
entrance.
approved by staff, yes.
And the bump out on the accessory building could be approved by staff.
Yeah, some sort of breaking of the mass of the accessory
Right.
structure.
Yeah, because that front porch entry, I'm thinking something wider, more substantial, not a 3-foot entry. Something that would be wide enough to substantiate the duplex, the size of the front porch. But I think we can coordinate. I think staff can handle that.
Agreed,
Yeah.
and I think that the applicant and as well as our board agreed that, so what's happened here is that the large front facade was broken into two small facades, where really we want to see it look like one large facade with detailing that gives it the two residences, as opposed to like splitting it down the middle and giving it the same little components on both sides.
I agree.
I've got a note to push the fence 1 foot off of the sidewalk on the central side, and as well as to reduce that height to 4 feet. And that's all I got. That's what I've got.
Would it be possible,
We can reopen the case or the hearing if you have a question.
well, yeah, I know I have to do that, but can I just see the front elevation without?
Oh, yeah.
having to
Can you
reopen?
put the front elevation back up, please?
Yeah, the windows are just far enough apart so that trying to join them with any kind of, like a fake louver or something, it's not gonna work out.
Mhm.
And there are real reasons why those windows need to be
Where they are.
that far apart, yeah.
But I think even the side, like if that was over like a toilet or something, like maybe we get creative on how to keep it, but it's not serving anyone from the exterior or from the interior.
I'm no architect, so from a design perspective, what if those windows were singles and spread out?
I could actually see those little square windows disappear.
But if you make it disappear and take that twin and make it two singles that are,
I understand the point. I think the twin on the second floor does a very nice job with the balancing act of the twin on the ground floor as well. I think it's a well-matched set. And if you want to break it up, then, you know, the only thing you can align it with is the door, and then there are some balance issues going on. I think it would be just as successful the way it is right now without the little square windows.
That's why I asked.
Because if we could put it much closer together, then, you know, the idea of like that bump out we're doing for the accessory structure would be, to me, you know, the working element that could work here. But we don't have that ability to move them that close together to make a mass element small enough to work with all the other elements that are on the front of this.
But I could also see him breaking the fenestration of this elevation with either treating a portion of the elevation with another material or giving it a new plane. Just, we don't want to see this all go away and it become one big, long, flat hardy board wall. But we don't need these three little elements to break it up either. And we're not here to design it, so he's gonna have to come up with something creative and get it approved by staff.
There we are. I think that's the condition.
All right, are you ready? I move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in case ARC 22-09 for the property located at 411 East Palm Avenue with the following conditions. That the front porch is reconsidered to read as a single entrance, including the modification of the front columns and welcome walls. To reconsider the front elevation second floor to remove the center small windows and small dividing beam, and break the second floor massing using another method, such as materials or break-in plane. All changes must be approved by staff. To push the fence 1 foot off of the sidewalk on the central side of the property, as well as the central side property fence not to exceed 4 foot high. Because based upon the finding of fact, the application is consistent with the Tampa Heights guidelines in its height, trim and details, roof forms, and orientation.
Do I have a second for this motion?
I second the motion.
Sir, do you understand these conditions and accept them as stated?
I do.
All those in favor for acceptance of this project, say aye.
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 Against, say nay. None recorded.
Thank you very much.
Note for approval as noted for ARC 2209. So concludes our public hearing for the ARC for January 3rd, 2022. I'll get better at this before long. Damn script. I understand a lot too, that's the funny thing.